From Pulpits to Progress, a journey with the West Baton Rouge Ministers Conference leaders. The establishment date of the West Baton Rouge Parish Ministers Conference remains to be discovered. However, records from the 4th District Missionary Baptist Association between 1901 and 1905 show that East Baton Rouge, West Baton Rouge, East Feliciana, West Feliciana, Point Coupee, Iberville, and Livingston parishes were under the 4th District's jurisdiction. While no information about a president or former organization existed for these parishes during that period, 135 churches were documented. The lack of historical records limited our knowledge. Still, we can trace back to the 80s when Reverend Dr. I.H. Warner served as president. During his leadership, the organization thrived, actively participating in movements impacting the Black community. Dr. Warner passionately championed voting rights, urging church members, the broader community, and neighboring regions to register and vote. Reverend Warner's leadership transcended the faith-based realm, embracing a broader vision for African American struggles. He generously shared information that could uplift the community's growth with the parish ministers. Leading multiple churches, including 2 in East Baton Rouge Parish, empowered Reverend Warner to unite with the West Baton Rouge Ministers Conference and East Baton Rouge Driving Change. His position enabled him to envision the collective impact these organizations could have on the community. During tough times when families faced financial hardship, the West Baton Rouge Parish Ministers Conference extended a helping hand, providing crucial assistance. Reverend Warner's presidency spanned a significant tenure. He oversaw many churches and led a diverse membership, including the Women's Auxiliary, Ushers Ministry, Mass Choir, and lay members. He recognized the potential in emerging ministers and understood the value of nurturing their faith journey and gospel outreach experience. Inviting them to join the West Baton Rouge Ministers Conference, he thoughtfully provided them with organizational roles. During his leadership, West Baton Rouge Parish Ministers Conference held significant meaning. It was a robust training ground, ensuring ministers were well prepared for their ordination. The organization took charge of the ordination process, with the president conducting the ceremonies. Reverend Warner's unwavering values and deep dedication to the ministry caught the attention of pastors across parishes. Impressed by his worth and love for the cause, they nominated Reverend Warner for the presidency of the 4th District Missionary Baptist Association. Reverend Warner's esteemed reputation ultimately held him to hold the presidency for an impressive number of years. Upon Reverend Dr. I.H. Warner's acceptance of the nomination as president of the 4th District Missionary Baptist Association, Reverend Reuben Northern assumed leadership of the West Baton Rouge Parish Ministers Conference.
Hello everyone, I'm Joel Gordon. I've come to speak on Reverend Isaiah Warner, a motivator, a leader, a teacher, and a community organizer. As you look at the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church, this is the edifice that he has built in 1968. I want to commend him on everything he has done, on his leadership, his understanding of people, and most of all, how to communicate with the young folks. He was a very instructable leader towards me. He helped me to guide me to be what I am today. As I look upon Reverend Warner, the leadership he provided for the West Baton Rouge Ministers Conference was unpickable. He led them in a direction where there was nothing going on, and he made sure that every preacher knew the right protocol to do when they was in the pulpit and outside in the community. He was a community leader. When you asked for Reverend Warner, you got Reverend Warner. When you called for Reverend Warner, he came. When he had a question, he answered it. And if he couldn't answer, he made sure that he found the answer. And most of all, he always built people up. He never told nobody not that they couldn't do. He always built them up, made them stronger and better. As you look at today's ministers, he was a builder for the future generation. As we go back and motivate Reverend Warner, when he stood in the pulpit and preached, he had everybody on one accord, believing and trusting in Jesus, believing and trusting in his decision, and believing in the pastoral of his understanding and leadership. Most of all, he was a man of God. He believed in God, he worshiped God, and showed everybody the diligently of serving God. As he go out into the community, everybody know Reverend Isaiah Warner was the pastor. Reverend Isaiah Warner was the ministers' conference president. Reverend Isaiah Warner was a leader. And most of all, he was a spirit-filled leader.
When I was part of I became a member of this church, and I was part of the finance and an office of the church during Reverend Warner's tenure. He was a great leader. He had a mission. He had a sound vision, and he always carried out his mission and his vision. We still use some of the principles that Reverend Warner put in place back then. He built a solid church here, and it's still a strong church. And we enjoyed his leadership very much. Thank you.
My name is Angela Trustclair Moore, and I am a member of the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church, where the late Reverend I.H. Warner baptized me at the age of 8. Reverend Warner was a pillar of the community, as well as a teacher, preacher, and great man of God. He instilled the Word of God in all of his sheep and encouraged the West Baton Rouge Ministers Conference to be visible in the community. Thank you.
My mother, my grandmother, and all of my family were all Christians, but there was one lost sheep, and that was my dad. And as a young person, I remember the preacher coming by the house, speaking to my dad all the time. And sometimes he would be in his car parked outside my father's garden, while my father worked in his garden, and he would be talking to my father. He was trying to get my dad to come to a church revival, but my dad explained to him that he was unable to come because he worked 4 to 12 midnight at a plant in Baton Rouge. Reverend Warner, having a compassion about men in the community being saved, he started a noonday revival. He asked my father if he could attend. My dad did, and eventually accepted Christ as his Lord and Savior, was baptized by Reverend Warner, and became a deacon at Shiloh and remained there until he passed away in 1970 at an early age of 49. Once my mom and dad became under Reverend Warner's leadership, so did me and my siblings. We all were baptized under Reverend Warner, and we became one Christian family with Christian beliefs. And that's what I remembered about the preachers and pastors of those days.
Hello, everybody. My name is Raymond Allen, proud pastor of the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church, and I've been here 23 years. And we thank God for being here, because our vision is that we love the Lord here. He has been a great pioneer in this community. Now, I know that, and I know that he was a dynamic orator and a great preacher who knew how to give the caruso, as they say, the preached word. I know that about him. And I know that he also was a songster. He was a psalmist. He could sing very well. And I just thank God for the opportunity to fall into that lineage, into that line, long line of preachers who have come through this church, and all of them were good. And I'm just glad that I'm in the number to be around those kind of guys. And I humbly submit that I thank God for being here. The West Baton Rouge Ministers Conference, I've been in that for 23 years. I've been here 23 years. And we're actively involved in things that go on with the conference, whatever they have, whatever they got going on. And I like to be the one that whatever they need, I'll do whatever it is. I don't have to always be in charge of everything. You know, some people, they can't do something unless they're in charge. I don't have to be in charge to be a doulos. In the Greek vernacular, the word doulos is the word servant. And you can't always be in charge being a servant. So being the servant is the one that always look to see whatever it is they can do to help the community be a better place, and the church to be a better place, and the home to be a better place, and the individual to be a better person.
Good evening. My name is Gloria Warner Washington, and I'm Reverend Warner's oldest daughter. My sisters like to say that. And I just want to talk a little bit about my father. Before I get to him, I have been a member of this church when Reverend T.R. Provost was the pastor. And I was baptized when I was 10 years old here. But when Reverend Provost left this church, my father became the pastor of Shiloh. And I am still here. I stayed here all of his service here until he retired. My father was a man who loved God. He loved his church. He did all that he could do for the church. My father was a missionary, which means he helped everybody that came to him who needed him to help or do something for him. My father was a pastor of, my sister said 4 churches. One was left out, but he wasn't there very long. He was a pastor of Christ Baptist, Mount Bethel, Shiloh, King David, and the Union Baptist Church. My father became a member of the West Baton Rouge Ministers Conference. He was always one who believed in learning because he went back to school himself and learned, and he went to every conference and every convention that was given that he was able to go. I miss him a lot, and we're always talking about him all the time. Sometimes when we're doing something we should not do, we think about it and say, oh my God, what would Dad say?
I'm Mary Terrence. I am the middle girl in the family. We also have a brother who is now deceased. But my dad was the 4th pastor of Shiloh Baptist Church. He followed a line of outstanding ministries, and as most of them, he was a servant leader, as he pastored 4 or 5 different churches. But Shiloh was the home church. In fact, we lived only a block from the church, so we attended this church regularly. I was baptized when I was about 10 years old, and that was around the time Dad became pastor. He was a man of integrity. He was committed to the ministry, loved people, loved the Lord, and spent a great deal of time in the service of the Lord. In fact, he spent so much time that I was a bit jealous sometimes of the church. But he always found time for his children and his family. He was a fisherman and loved to hunt. He would hunt squirrels and rabbit, and then he would bring his findings home and cook them. We had many vacations. Quite often this involved going to his favorite fishing place, cooking the fish and eating outside, but we enjoyed that time with him. Dad also enjoyed gardening. He would raise tomatoes, beans, and other vegetables, and he was a lover of, we raised chickens. I think a lot of people may remember those days when we had chickens in the backyard. But Dad was your typical father. He also disciplined us, and I don't ever remember getting punished or getting a whipping or for doing anything wrong from him. But he always sit and talk with us about why we did it and he would let us know that what we did was wrong. Dad was truly committed to the ministry. In his study, which is still there are hundreds of books. He did a lot of reading, was an avid reader of anything and everything. But he committed himself. He was sincere about spreading the gospel, and he did this regularly. I don't recall him missing church. If he did, I sure don't remember it. Every Sunday he was gone. Sometimes my sisters and I traveled with him to the various churches. But Dad was an outstanding leader in the community too. He loved his community. He worked for voters registration and other issues in the community. He was the president of the West Baton Rouge Ministers Conference and also president of the 4th District Association. He was involved in state and national organization. And most of all, Dad was humble and he was a lover of people. He would talk to anybody, no matter what you looked like, what kind of clothing you had on. He just loved people. And I think in this love for people and his ability to communicate with them so well, he was able to draw others to Christ. This is the chair my father sat in on Sunday mornings preaching the word to the congregation. And I'm quite sure there are many among us today who remember sitting in this pulpit next to him. As a young minister, if you came to visit Shiloh on Sunday mornings, my father would invite you to come to the pulpit. And when he called you to the pulpit, that meant you needed to have a sermon in your back pocket or in the trunk of your car, because he may call on you to preach, and you had to be prepared.
Good evening. I'm Carolyn Warner, Reverend Warner's youngest daughter. I'm sitting in the choir stand where you usually find me every Sunday. I've been a member of the Shiloh Baptist Church for over 50 years. My father baptized me at the age of 9 years old. My father is a very authentic person. He's just a country guy from Irvinville, Louisiana. He is true to his calling. He's a faithful servant of God, and he's faithful to our family. He's faithful to the church and faithful to the community. He's, as they say, a people person. Mm-hmm. He had a vision for his churches, and he was a person who believed in being honest. He had to have integrity, and he raised us that way in our home. You know, you start off in the home, and we are children that he wanted us to set an example. He always believed in setting an example for his churches. He pastored 4 churches. And you know, when you're pastoring 4 churches, sometimes you don't have time for the family all the time you should have for the family. But he was one who set an example. He got up every Sunday morning, and he would knock on my door and tell me it's time to go to church. I would get up. If I didn't get up and go to church with him, I could walk to church, because he was going to be very timely. He's a very timely person. He believed in promoting both the spiritual growth of the church, the physical growth of the church, as well as educational. We had to attend Sunday school, Vacation Bible School, and of course BTU. And he was a person that represented Christ. So he also represented the community in promoting Christian living. He was a person that attended the Council on Aging. He promoted the work for the Council on Aging, the Voters League, and he had several revivals in town where, you know, from church to churches. I could remember as a child, in those days when they had revivals, they would always come from church. They would come from the mother of the church home, and they would walk all the way to the church and come in. He was a great individual, and I loved my father. And he worked very well in the West Baton Rouge Ministers Conference. He worked well in the district state convention and the national convention. He loved everybody, and I thank each and every one of the members of all of his churches for giving him all the love and protecting him and keeping him safe. Thank you so much.